This is CBS News New York.
Breaking news, an American Airlines jet colliding with a military chopper over Reagan National Airport over the Potomac River in D.C., the worst air disaster in the U.S. in over a decade.
Both aircraft plunging into the Potomac River, where search and rescue operations are underway. 19 people are confirmed dead at this hour. No word yet about whether any survivors are being found in the water. We have live team coverage.
Good morning on this Thursday, January 30th. I'm Chris Raggi.
I'm Mary Calvi, and we begin with Christina Fan live here in the studio with the latest on this breaking story. Christina.
Mary and Chris, good morning. Hundreds of first responders are on the banks and in the Potomac River as we speak, searching through that wreckage. At least 19 people have been confirmed dead, with 0 survivors found so far. This EarthCam video shows the moment an American Airlines jet and an Army helicopter collided in midair just before 9 p.m. near Reagan National Airport. You see an explosion in the sky as both aircraft plummet into the river. The Army says the Black Hawk helicopter involved was on a training flight with 3 service members on board. American Airlines says Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines from Wichita, Kansas, was approaching the runway with 60 passengers and 4 crew members. We've now learned several members with the U.S. figure skating team were on that plane, returning home after the U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita. In a news briefing early Thursday, officials say police boats and divers were still conducting search and rescue.
I speak for the people of Washington, 700,000 of us who are extremely sorry for the families who are experiencing loss tonight. And so we want you to know that we will continue to work with American Airlines to share information.
The challenges are access. The water that we're operating in is about 8 feet deep. There is wind. There is pieces of ice out there. So it's just dangerous and hard to work in. And because there's not a lot of lights, you're out there searching every square inch of space to see if you can find anybody. Divers are doing the same thing in the water.
In a statement, President Donald Trump says he is monitoring the situation. Separately on social media, the president also questioned the actions of the helicopter and air traffic control prior to the collision. Multiple agencies are investigating this incident now, including the Pentagon, the FBI, and FAA, with the National Transportation Safety Board taking the lead. According to a law enforcement source, the American Airlines jet broke into multiple pieces upon contact with the water. The helicopter was found upside down, but mostly intact. Chris and Mary.
Okay, Christina Fan, thank you. Elijah Westbrook covers transportation for us, joins us now as we cover this first major U.S. airline crash in 15 years, 2009 in Buffalo, people remember. So the black box, one of them has been recovered. That is a positive.
Yes, that's right. So a source close to this investigation is confirming with us that at least one of 2 of the black boxes that were used on that plane was discovered in the Potomac River. And as you can imagine, Chris and Mary, that's certainly a very crucial part in this investigation. If we have an image, we would like to show you the aircraft that was used during this crash here. It's a CRJ-700. It was manufactured by the Canadian company Bombardier. And again, Chris and Mary, investigators having access to that black box is crucial. It's a flight data recorder, if you will, that keeps track of the flight, but also conversations that have happened during that flight. If you've ever seen one, despite its name, it's not black. It's actually an orange color. And we know it has a lifespan of up to 90 days after a incident, such as what we unfortunately saw yesterday in Washington, D.C.
What about the circumstances behind this crash? We understand this happened at a very low altitude.
It did. So if you're familiar with that airspace or have seen essentially the landing approach as planes come into Reagan National Airport, it's flying right over the Potomac River. And so we're talking maybe 200 to 300 feet where that plane was coming in. And that helicopter, we're hearing, was flying under 200 feet, which is not good for a situation like this. So all of that is being looked into. It's being investigated at this time. You can see the helicopter, the Black Hawk helicopter that was involved in this crash here. We know that it originated in Fairfax County, Virginia. You're also looking at a video of the radar showing this collision here. You can see the dots, if you will, moving closer together. And this is the moment of impact yesterday, last night. But yeah, just a catastrophic situation and one that is still being investigated.
A lot of questions to be answered here as to why the helicopter was in that airspace of that plane on approach to Reagan National. All right, Elijah, thank you very much.
And let's go now to Reagan National Airport with the latest on this crash. Natalie Brand is live in Arlington, Virginia. Natalie, what is going on right now with any search efforts on the Potomac River, and just devastating details since the Potomac just began to thaw?
Just unimaginable, Barry, Chris. The airport here, inside this airport, we are expecting another press briefing in the next couple of hours. But outside, we can see emergency responders continue to drive by. We know that more than 300 responders, both federal and local resources, are participating in this effort. That's fire, police boats, as well as the Coast Guard. The sun is just starting to kind of peak out at this point, so hopefully that helps with this really complicated operation. But obviously they've been braving these difficult conditions of extremely cold weather, frigid waters in the Potomac River, and wind that we've been experiencing, as well as working through the night, through the darkness.
Natalie, I know the airport's closed right now. When are they expected to resume operations there? When's the next update from any officials? I see there's a press conference set up for behind you. Any updates on that front?
Yeah, that's expected around 7:30 this morning. The airport, as you can see, closed to travelers. This would normally be a bustling airport, Reagan National Airport, one of the busiest, but it remains closed until at least 11 a.m. And again, we are eagerly awaiting new details from law enforcement officials, people involved directly in the search and recovery operation, as well as earlier overnight. You know, we heard from the Kansas senators who said at this point there are just so many more questions than answers about why this helicopter was so close to such a busy flight space for passenger planes, and what communication was happening between the aircraft and air traffic control.
Natalie Brand live for us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Well, the CEO of American Airlines put out a video statement overnight. Here's part of what he had to say.
I'd like to express our deep sorrow about these events. This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines, and our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, partners, first responders, along with their families and loved ones. We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation, and will continue to provide all the information we can.
He also noted that American Airlines was sending a team to Washington and that he would be traveling there as well.
And again, the last time a passenger plane went down in the Potomac was 43 years ago. It was January 13th, 1982. 78 people died when an Air Florida plane headed for Tampa crashed into the river shortly after taking off from Reagan Airport. The plane struck a truck and more than 6 cars on the 14th Street Bridge before hitting the ice. 4 people in the vehicles on the bridge died, and only 5 of the plane's 76 passengers survived. The cause was determined to be ice on the plane's wings and engines, as well as pilot error. And stay with CBS News as we continue to follow the story for you. We'll bring you any updates as we get them.
All right, now let's get to meteorologist Tony Sadiqa, who is in our virtual studio this morning. Tony?
Hey, Chris, and we got some changeable weather to talk about. Of course, yesterday the story was the winds and the milder air. Well, we had a cold front move through, and you can tell when you step out the door and you're greeted by numbers that feel more like January, not the spring preview we had yesterday. Those 50s are gone, stuffed out by this chill. And out the door in New Canaan, it's 23, but it feels like 9. So you can tell there's still some residual breezes in Oyster Bay, too, where 26 feels like about 14 Jersey City. Similar story, good portion of the area. And that's basically what we're in for today. The wind's not going to be quite as strong. Instead, we got a bright day with high pressure in charge for us, and numbers will be stuck in the 30s. The focus will then shift to a storm system developing now across the south. Some severe weather and flooding concerns across that part of the area, which last week, as you remember, was covered in snow. Now they've got a threat for severe weather. What does this ultimately mean for us? We don't see the severe weather component following the storm all the way to the northeast. Instead, with some residual cold air tomorrow, we've actually have a threat for a period of time where we could actually see some glaze of ice, particularly north of the sea. Not a major impact, but we do have winter weather advisories in place. We'll detail that and the tale of two Januaries. Can we turn what's right now on pace to be our driest January on record around with some beneficial rain on Friday? Full details in a moment. But first, Elijah, how's it looking out there on the roads?
Hey, Tony, good morning. So in East Rutherford, New Jersey, there's a stalled vehicle on the New Jersey Turnpike Western Spur. We're looking at this time, or learning rather, this is southbound approaching the interchange 16W, which is Route 3. The center lane is closed with slow traffic. Now back to 18W. You may want to use the Eastern Spur instead. Now let's go in for a live look at the George Washington Bridge, where you can see traffic is pretty good at this time, shortly after 5:40 in the morning. This is as you approach the span leading into the George Washington Bridge. As for the rest of the Hudson River crossings, no delays to report at the Lincoln or Holland tunnels. Alternate side parking is in effect today citywide. Chris and Mary, back to you.
Elijah, thank you. 5:40 right now. Coming up more on our breaking news on that deadly plane crash. At least 19 confirmed dead.
Let's take a look at the active scene on the Potomac right now, where emergency crews are searching desperately for survivors. 60 passengers on board, including 4 crew members, 3 crew members on the Black Hawk helicopter that collided with that American Airlines commuter jet. We'll have more on this story when we come back.